Right now, you've stopped trying to change something. You don't think about it much anymore. You've accepted it. That acceptance might be wisdom, or it might be something Martin Seligman discovered in 1967 at the University of Pennsylvania. Something that rewires the brain before you know it's happening. Seligman wasn't studying humans at first. He was studying dogs. And the experiment he ran changed how we understand every person who ever quietly gave up. Here's a question before we go further. Think about one specific thing in your life you've stopped trying. Not given up on dramatically. Just stopped. Hold that thought. Because by the end of this, you'll know exactly why. The first part of Seligman's experiment was simple. Dogs were placed inside a two-compartment box. A low barrier divided the sides. Shocks came through the floor on one side. The dogs could jump the barrier. The shocks stopped. Learnable. Fast. Easy. But a second group got something different first. These dogs were restrained in a harness. Shocks came. They struggled. Nothing changed. They barked. Nothing changed. They stayed completely still. Nothing changed. Pain came regardless of what they did. No action worked. No reaction helped. Then Seligman moved these dogs to the shuttle box. The barrier was there. The escape was real. But they didn't try. They lay down on the electrified floor. They stopped moving. They accepted the pain. Seligman called it learned helplessness. Not physical helplessness, not exhaustion. A belief learned from experience that their actions changed nothing. And that belief stayed with them. One group learned their actions had consequences. The other learned the opposite. And the second lesson didn't stay in the harness. It followed them into every room after. Seligman then removed the barrier completely. No obstacle. Clear floor, open path. Most of the helpless dogs still didn't move. They lay down where the shocks came. They had stopped looking for a way out. One session. That's all it took to rewrite the rule. Seligman tested this on humans next. Participants sat in a room with a loud, irritating noise. Some had a button that stopped it. Others had a button connected to nothing. No matter how many times they pressed, the noise continued. Then everyone moved to a new room. The button worked now, for everyone. The people who had control earlier pressed it immediately. The people who had no control, they sat in the noise. Most didn't even reach for the button. One experience of helplessness, one session of nothing you do matters. And the brain stopped expecting a different outcome. The numbers were stark. 2/3 of subjects gave up completely. Not on the noise problem, on unrelated problems after. One experience of helplessness transferred. 2 situations with nothing in common. Different room, different task, different day. The brain carried the conclusion anyway. Seligman saw this pattern everywhere after, not just in labs. In relationships where people stopped trying to leave. They had tried once. It hadn't worked, so they stopped believing they could. In workplaces where people stopped asking for raises, 2 rejections, and that's often all it takes. The third time, they don't ask. In classrooms where students stopped raising their hands, they answered wrong once. Someone laughed. They never raised their hand again. The room changed. The brain didn't. Here's what makes this dangerous. The brain doesn't learn this situation is hopeless. It learns something broader. It learns my actions don't change things. Not in this room. Not in any room. That's not a thought you have. That's a rule your brain runs automatically. Think about the last time you didn't apply for something, or stopped raising your hand in a certain room, or quietly let go of one goal. You probably have a reasonable explanation. But there's another possibility. Your brain ran the rule. And it didn't feel like giving up. It felt like being realistic. That's what makes learned helplessness impossible to see from inside it. Seligman followed the dogs further. The helpless ones didn't recover on their own, even when the escape was obvious. Even when other dogs jumped the barrier in front of them. Most still lay down. Researchers had to physically carry them over the barrier, again and again, before some finally jumped themselves. 1 session to learn helplessness, weeks to begin undoing it. Most humans never get those weeks. Most just carry the session. The interview that went wrong. The idea they shared and the room went quiet. The time they tried and failed while someone watched. The brain logged it, and the next time the opportunity appeared, it already had the answer. before you chose. Before you even noticed there was a choice. You've had that moment, and right now, somewhere in your life, there's a barrier you're not trying to cross. Not because you can't, because in a different room a long time ago, your brain decided you wouldn't, and it never updated. Next video is about Solomon Asch. In 1951, he showed people two lines. One was clearly longer. Every other person in the room said they were the same, and most people agreed, even though they could see the truth with their own eyes. Subscribe, I'll show you exactly why.